Welcome back to Adventures in Bread Making with Doug. We've kind of thrown a few of these videos out there that are about sourdough, which can be tricky for some people. So we're going to back up a step and start with a Saturday white, a basic white bread that Ken Forkish has as his first bread recipe in his book. So pretty simple. First thing we're going to do is get our flour auto-laced and ready to get started. We're doing this starting in the morning, and we're hopefully going to let it do its rise over the day and then be baking in the early evening. Okay, well, let's see. A little further into this, we're going to need to have our salt yeast, so let me get that ready. One of the things we want is yeast. This is not a sourdough, so we're just using a yeast rise. And this is going to be a teaspoon of yeast. As you can see, I'm going to have to get myself some more yeast. And then we're going to weigh, I could weigh that, but it's about 4 grams, and my scale isn't that accurate at that level. And this is your salt. Is usually 21 grams. So well, that's 24. Another reason why I like to measure into a separate container before blending all the ingredients together. Okay, so we have our salt and yeast ready. I'm not going to add those just yet, but I'm going to set them aside because the big thing we want to do right now is get our flour and water together. All right, 12 quart polycarbonate tub. Nice thing about this is you can see all the action. We're going to zero that out. In other words, tare, T-A-R-E, tare the container. For this, we're going to do 1,000 grams of white. I use the King Arthur flour. I like it. All-purpose, unbleached. You can use your other favorites. And it's, I think, about 5 cups. But again, one of the secrets to getting your bread to turn out right is making sure that you weigh your ingredients. Because using it by volume, you could be squishing in a lot more flour than you need. We're in the 900s. Of course we went over. $1,000, oh my goodness. Right there. Okay, so we have our flour ready. Now we're going to go with 720 grams of water. We want this water to be on the warm side. This was registering in the 90s. It's a cool kitchen, so... Okay. We are back. I'm happier with my water temperature. It's registering 96 now. That's good. You may wonder why I'm being so picky about the water temperature, but too hot and it'll kill your yeast. Too cold and it'll just really slow down the whole fermenting process. And you want your target temperature after we have this dough mix to be about 78 degrees so that it will leaven nicely for your project. Okay, we have 720 grams to go. This metal bowl's a little on the cool side too, so that's probably going to take the temperature down. I need to scoop some more. It's always hard to get this exact with water. I usually find myself going back and forth and back and forth. Here, 720 on the nose. And just double checking, we were down to 93.4 degrees now. That's good. All right. As I said, we're going to autolyze. Not sure how that's actually pronounced, but we're going to take our flour, add the water, mix that well, and let it sit for about 30 minutes. What's going to happen is that's going to help your gluten development. It's going to release a lot of yeast that may be in some of this flour, and it's going to really help your structure once you get going with your bread. I don't have a problem hand mixing. Make sure your hands are good and clean. It's sticky, but it's fun. Okay, we're going to cover this and let this go for 30 minutes. And you're not really going to, you really don't have any yeast in here. I mean, you don't have any that you've added. So you're not going to see anything rise in this. You just want to see the structures begin to develop. And you want to make sure you have all of your flour evenly wet. There's always a lot of dry bits in the bottom. You want to make sure you mix that around good. And we'll be back with you in 30 minutes. Okay, we're back. It's been 30 minutes. We're going to do a couple of folds on this dough. We're going to ease it away from the sides and the bottom. Oh, yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit. I can fold this all day and it's not going to help because I didn't mix it yet. What I need to do is put in the remaining ingredients. As you say, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to add my yeast. I was talking about all those extra things. Forgot about finishing. And again, some recipes will tell you to dissolve the yeast in water ahead of time to make sure that it's still viable. Forkish says that because he has a slack dough with a fair amount of hydration in it, 70% or more, that it's fine to blend it into the dough instead of pre-dissolving it. All right. Now, actually, before we do the folding, we really want to mix. But it's kind of the same process. Mixing it in means, and you know, you can read about all this stuff, but it's sometimes helpful to see. Forkish talks about a pincher method, which kind of makes sense. That as you're mixing your dough, you're pinching to blend the ingredients. This is where that flexible scraper sometimes helps when it gets really stuck to your... You can see it's sticky. We want to get a target temperature of about 77, 78 degrees on our dough. This is registering 78 degrees, so we know we've got a good temperature of our dough for its fermentation. Okay, let me review because I might have gotten you a little confused. What we're doing now is we're doing the mixing stage. We did the autolyse where the flour and the water absorb together. We've now added the yeast and the salt, and we've mixed the dough, and we're going to let this rise about 5 hours. It's going to be its bulk ferment, but I was showing you both the mixing action and the idea that you're going to, for the first two times, a half hour apart, you're going to do some folds. That means about a half hour after this, we're going to fold. And you can see that's really a matter of pulling and stretching your dough, going a quarter turn, pulling, stretching, folding over the dough. Kind of takes the place of heavy kneading. And you'll see, as you do this and get better at it, you'll notice the tension that builds up. You'll know that that's getting your gluten development, which is good, because your gluten traps the carbon dioxide that the yeast produces. Okay, I think we'll be good with this. We're going to let this sit for a total of 5 hours to bulk rise, but a half hour after this, I'm going to do a fold just like we did, and then a half hour after that, I'm going to do another fold. So that's 2 folds in the first hour, and then we're going to let it go till it hopefully double or triples in the container. It's time to make my first fold with my white bread. One thing that I found helpful is to maintain a little notebook where I can keep notes about what the timing is, because many of these breads require things at different stages, at a half hour, at an hour, 3 hours. So I know when I started it, I know I did one, I'm about to do one fold, and I'm going to check off that I did a second fold. But having a notebook like this for all your breads will help you keep notes on what worked and what didn't work, as well as the timing. Okay, it has spread out a little bit. Plastic scraper often helps to just get it up a little bit out of the tub. Wetting your hands with nice warm water will also help it gets sticky. All right, again, you're pulling and folding. Pulling, folding. You're going to kind of rotate around a circuit, if you will, pulling. And this, you'll really begin to recognize the tension that builds up in your gluten and in the dough, and you realize that, okay, we're doing good. It's by stretching it, folding it, you can really, I mean, I am pulling. It's not tearing. Don't want to tear it, but it's fighting me a little bit, and that's good. You want that tension. All right, I'm going to try and shape it back into the center. We'll let it go, and then we'll do another fold in a half hour. We've now completed our second fold. We're going to let the dough rise for another 4 hours and see how it looks. Okay, this is where it gets fun. You can see that we've got a considerable rise on our dough. We're about to take it out. I wanted you to see we've got some good bubbles going on in there. So we're going to tip this out onto our floured work surface, and we're going to show you how to divide it, shape it, put it into the proofing bowls for our final stage. This is when things get fun, and where we need some extra flour. I'm going to take my bread pillow out of the way. I'm going to move dough to the side. I'm going to make sure I have my work surface well floured. This is why you end up with flour everywhere. Okay, my hands need to be floured. Flour is your friend. And in the edge of the tub here, I'm going to sprinkle some flour. Help us release. Okay. Yeah, release the Kraken. Here we go. We're going to, again, start. I don't know how well all this is going to show up, but we're going to start to release, sometimes with the help of a scraper. And we're going to try to be reasonably gentle with the dough, because it's going to start to deflate, but once she starts moving, you're usually okay. I find that once it releases off the bottom, we're usually in pretty good shape. Yeah, did a pretty good job of getting that out. Next step is to, I like to sprinkle some dough on this, flour on top of the dough, because it is going to be sticky, but you got to be careful. You're going to get dough lines in your bread. Alright, I kind of gather up a second. Again, you don't want to work it too much. We're going to, let me get a better bench knife. Right about where you're going to cut it in half. Sprinkle a line. Okay. A couple of interesting steps here. Now, we're going to put these in our bannetons, which need to be floured. These have been used rather extensively, so they've already got a pretty good base of flour in them, but you want to be able to have your dough release when it's time. And since we're not going to refrigerate this dough during the proofing stage, it's going to be a little warm and tacky, so we want to make sure it comes out and releases. Alright, the bannetons are ready. Next step is to clear a spot that doesn't have flour on it, and it will give it a little grip. So you're going to make sure you get, watch that, your dough will knit back together again. Okay. I sometimes give it a left and right fold. You want to turn this into a ball, and you want that ball to grip as you drag it across the work surface, in this case my counter. I'm not trying to work it too much, but you want to get a little more tension in it. Seam side down in your proofing basket. You can see we still have some bubbles moving around in that. Alright, same thing with this one. Do left and right. Shape it into a ball. Try to drag it with your pinkies, kind of catching it. This is giving a little extra tension to your gluten. Alright, and that one's in the bowl. Proofing bowl. We're going to sprinkle, I like to sprinkle a little flour on top to help it as it goes. And you see we've got a nice bubble there that can make it interesting on the side of the loaf. Sprinkle this too so that as it rises it doesn't stick to the sides. These are going to do their final proofing for about an hour and 15 minutes. Now, partway into that, you're going to preheat your oven with the Dutch ovens in it. So you'll be 45 minutes before it's time for you to bake these, which means maybe in a half hour to 40 minutes we'll start preheating the oven. 475, and then we're going to put them in the Dutch ovens and bake them. But I'll show you that next step. But right now we're going to keep these out on the counter. And you can cover them with a towel if you wanted. I use these vegetable bags. And we're going to set that on the counter for later. It's time to get our bread out of the bannetons, out of the proofing bowls, and into the Dutch ovens and into the oven to bake. It's been preheating at 475, and I'm going to bring one of the Dutch ovens out. It looks as though these have proofed. Okay, on my floured work surface, I'm going to tip this out. It came out nicely. These are fairly soft and squishy, but I'm still going to try to do some steam slicing there. All right, very carefully. This is very soft. I want to get this in the Dutch oven. Put the lid back on. Get that in the oven. I think by now you know we're going to cook those for 30 minutes and then covered, and then another 15 to 20 minutes uncovered. I don't know, this is so soft. I don't know about that lame cut. Now it's time to take the lids off. Let's see what we've got. Oh, that looks pretty good. That looks excellent. So they look good so far. We'll put them back in for a little while, a little more browning on the tops. I think it's time for us to take these out. There's one. Here's the second one. We're going to tip that out, and here's our first loaf. They look really good. And there we have it, our Saturday white on a Monday. Well, I guess we can see where one of those big bubbles ended up. Other than that big hole in the bread, it looks good. Crust and crumb turned out wonderful.